Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Shelley Tasker Show here, coming out of Cornwall Revolution Radio.blogspot.com in association with the Campbell, Newquay, Penzance Troop Action Groups. It's good to have your company. If you'd like to join in with the live chat, click on the live chat room link on the top right-hand side of your screen, just below the player of your choice. Today's date is Wednesday, the 7th of April, 2021, and hosting along myself is Nina Eilertson. Hi, Nina.
Hello.
And tonight's guest is Jason Christoff. Good evening, Jason.
Thank you, ladies, for having me on. Good afternoon, good evening in the UK.
What time is it over there?
3:30 in the afternoon.
Right, I worked out the time right then. I wasn't sure. It's quite funny, actually, because I've been following you for quite a few years on Facebook, Jason, and I see you're not posting much at the moment, but you're in Facebook jail, as I understand.
Yes, this is correct. I seem to get thrown in Facebook jail quite a bit over the past 2 years. So we can definitely see the pattern there.
Yeah, all the people that are speaking the truth. And I'm just going to make sure that I can share this live via Facebook a second. And what's quite funny is actually when you were posting up probably about 8 years ago, you were saying that you were doing a talk in Cornwall. And I was so excited, but you're actually in Cornwall in California, not California, Canada, aren't you?
I'm in Cornwall, Ontario, Canada, and that's the thing with the UK Royals. They like to name they're not very original with the names of their towns.
No. So, but you're a self-sabotage coach, Jason.
Yes, I came across that profession over time. It's the most effective way to implement positive change in someone's life. I was one of Canada's best exercise and nutrition coaches at one time, and my clients simply could not, there was a mental block. They could not get toward their goals, or if they did come toward their goals, it would be more of a flyby, a temporary vacation at the goal summit, and then they would quickly fall back down the mountain to their usual habits. And what I found out later was, we all are under some form of hypnosis, and we have triggers, and these triggers force our hand and force our behavior in one way or another. And the way we're conditioned through movies and TV shows, we're taught, it's called behavior modification, but we're brainwashed into being afraid of any sort of success. We are pack animals, and if we become better than the wolf pack ostracizes us or attacks us. But it's a little more than that. There is a deep hypnosis, behavior modification, psychology, and brainwashing used against the population to make them afraid of being different, to be afraid of, getting involved with their best lives, becoming abundant, getting healthy, and sort of being different in a positive way. Trust me, no one has any problems being different in a negative way. You can see that today. They always rebel to the bottom, but it's very scary to rebel to the top. And I discovered I literally, no matter how much education I had behind me in nutrition and exercise, my clients were failing. I was failing them. They were failing me. Money was being exchanged. So I investigated the brainwashing techniques that I came across through a lot of my research, and I was very offended that those brainwashing techniques are used against the population to make us very underachieving, mediocre, and messy humans. But then I thought, okay, hold on. Can we use this brainwashing knowledge can I use it in the same way, but can I brainwash them to be amazing? Can I brainwash someone to lose weight? Can I brainwash someone to quit smoking? Can I brainwash them to quit coffee and alcohol? And sure enough, you could use the same brainwashing tactics to make people amazing. And so that's when I quit being an exercise and nutrition coach, because I could have a lot greater success just using psychology and behavior modification with my clients, and then, they didn't even try to eat ice cream. I could brainwash them to hate it. So it was really effective.
Wow, brilliant.
It is. I mean, we've all seen recently, particularly the last year, how much we've all been, well, a vast majority of us that have been brainwashed by the media and stuff. And I mean, for a certain amount of us, we've seen it. We've read beyond the lies and the fear, etc. And I suppose it's the same with our own little, like you say, twisting it the other way. How can you brainwash us? Would it be like to the extent of like putting positive affirmations into you to, if you like smoking, I don't like smoking?
It's basic. To do this, it's a bit of a process. The first part of the process is to understand how brainwashing works and sort of to show it going down in real time in TV shows and movies. And you really have to get someone sort of comfortable in this field, in this space, so that they understand how they're brainwashed to destroy themselves. That's always the first step. And sometimes in my presentations, and I do sell online programs that are very effective and very interesting for people, because I present them live on, say, Zoom, and I record them, and then I perform them for a live audience, and then I package them and move them on to people that are interested in coming over their self-sabotage. But during those presentations, we actively review movie trailers and parts of TV shows, advertising, and we show the people that this is a real thing and that there are real families and groups organizing the radio shows, like on the radio in your car. They're organizing your newspapers. They're organizing your TV shows. They're organizing your movies, and they're riddling the background. And we always study the background, which is very interesting. But they're always riddling the background with these repetitive messages, repetitive symbols, and repetitive imprints. And that's your first sort of lesson in brainwashing, is that there's a part of the brain called the subconscious that is really obsessed with counting things that are repetitive. And this part of the brain is called the subconscious, and it loves repetitive content because its function in in your body, the subconscious function is to keep you safe, secure, and to help you survive. And the reason repetitive content is so crucial to your survival and your safety is because the more repetitive an idea, or the more repetitive a picture, or the more repetitive a hairstyle or a pair of shoes, and it actually reflects that a bigger herd, like a bigger group of people, are already participating in that idea or space or product. And because this part of the brain is obsessed with making you safe, it already knows that the bigger group is the safer group. So this is why it's always combing your environment through your eyes and through your ears, your auditory centers, and it has this amazing capacity to count repetition. And when it finds the repetition, it will force you, literally like it's a director of a movie, it will literally feed you a script and you will act it out, whether you like it or not, or whether it gives you positive results or not. And you could phone this part of the brain and saying, yes, I understand I live in a society where, 40% of the population is obese and 70% are overweight, but I don't want to be overweight. I don't want your silly script of trying to fit in with the bigger overweight tribe just because it's more of a repetitive image in my, in the downloaded area. You could phone the subconscious and actually have that conversation. And it's going to say, look, I'm really sorry. I love you, but I'm the fit in guy. My job is to make you fit in with everybody. It's to you have to go along to get along. And the subconscious would say, hey, look, I'm really sorry, but I'm in charge of your safety and security. You have to fit in with the repetitive images and the repetitive, messages in this environment. And all I'm seeing is repetitive negative content. So you will have to act out this negative behavior because I don't know any other way to sort of interface with the world. And basically, if you want to override, you can always override the behavior protocols or the script that this part of the brain is pushing out for you to sort of act out like an actor. But you have to control the repetitive content in a positive way. So what you're saying with the affirmations, it is part of it, but there's a full spectrum attack that you will want to launch at the subconscious to upregulate and upcount positive images and empowering repetitive content to literally override the negative content that is purposely driven into our subconscious minds by our sorcerers, kind of our black magic sorcerers in Hollywood and in TV shows. I hope that makes some sense.
Yeah. So you have to eradicate the bad before you can introduce the fresh, so to speak.
You do it sort of at the same time, but if you upregulate, which is the only way to hack this part of the brain to kind of make it produce a new script for you to act out, you need to upregulate the positive content. But when you do that, you can't go back and have a real, and there's certain ways to do this, and I could get into what I can tell people what I do to control my subconscious mind.
Oh, please do.
Well, what I'll do is I'll tell you at first that you can't upregulate, and you want to throw the positive content to the top of the count list inside the subconscious mind, so it tries to make you fit in with a better tribe that actually you're inventing, right? Like you're controlling what the subconscious believes is the better tribe because you take full control of your content. Now, if you were to do that, and if you do it for 3 weeks in a row, this is when the subconscious mind firmly believes you live in a richer tribe, or you live in a thinner tribe, or you live in a more abundant tribe. It takes about 3 weeks in a row, but it's 3 weeks consecutively without watering down the content by returning to watch something like Bad Moms or Dirty Grandpa or the HBO series Shameless. Because this part of the brain doesn't know the difference between screen time or something on a screen, real life, and imagined thoughts. So if you're watching the HBO show Shameless, which is purposely produced to hack your subconscious mind with negative role modeling and highly immoral and unethical content, repetitive content, if you go back and watch that show, your subconscious literally believes you live in the Shameless tribe, or you live in the Bad Moms tribe, or you live in the Dirty Grandpa tribe. And to your subconscious mind, all those 3 Hollywood productions are very similar. They're about alcohol, they're about coffee, they're about lewd behavior, immorality, unemployment, theft, criminality. And your subconscious mind, with that repetitive content, will force out a script where you will act that out. And I'll give you a couple real life examples of how powerful screen production can be in your behavior. There was a movie in 2001 called Gone in 60 Seconds. It was with Angelina Jolie and Nicolas Cage, and it was a movie about car theft. Nicolas Cage was an old car thief that had to be brought back out of retirement to settle a debt that was incurred by his brother with the local mobster. So that was about BBC Canada. Car theft. Netflix show here, sometimes they differ. Netflix shows different films or series depending on what continent you are. But in North America, there's something called The Queen's Gambit on Netflix. It's a movie about a chess playing chess matches.
Yeah, we've had it over here as well, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and during that, since it's been released, chess set sales are up 700% on Amazon. People copy what they see in a way that they would never believe. And I have, with the Zoom events, I show videos that completely prove to anybody willing to watch the videos that when they're done watching the very short video, control of their behavior. And that it is the subconscious mind that pushes through your behavior. The average person thinks, I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I make up my decisions based on my careful considerations of my life options. And the behavioral specialists, like the people working in SAGE, the group that is advising the UK government on all the COVID lockdown and COVID measures, those are 85% of the professionals working in SAGE are behavioral specialists, which means they're brainwashing specialists.
Yeah.
And and there's a reason the government is being consulted by psychologists who are experts in behavior modification. I'll give you another example. There was a show released in 1989. I think it was on ABC out of the United States. It was called The Cosby Show.
Yeah.
With Bill Cosby. And Bill Cosby was Mr. Huxtable. And he was an African-American medical doctor. His wife, Claire, was an African-American lawyer. And during the 9-year run of the show, African-American enrollment in medical school and law school went up 19%.
Wow.
And they called that the Cosby effect, and that was deemed the Cosby effect by Dr. Jerry Croth, Kroth, out of Santa Clara University in California. And it was just too much of a positive influence in society as a whole, and also on the black community. The people who rule us, you would think, would make all our productions similar to The Cosby Show, but they don't. And that's why The Cosby Show was canceled. And then once it was canceled, there was another initiation of behavior modification technology through the screens, through the movie screens and the TV screens. And the black community got drowned in a tsunami of negative, repetitive role modeling out of the screen, and African-American enrollment in all post-secondary education dropped well below pre-Cosby Show levels, and they called that the Lil Wayne effect, because it's all about the subconscious producing your behavior script for you based on the repetitive content that it downloads through your eyes and your ears in an attempt to make you fit in with the bigger herd. So whoever controls the repetitive content of the screen controls the behavior of the public.
So it's a bit like that saying, whoever controls the media controls the world, don't they?
Correct. And even the word media, media is an old country around the Mediterranean. It's what we now know as Turkey. That used to be called Media, and it housed a population known as the Medes, Medes, and they were the inventors of behavior modification who would sell their services, their psychological manipulative services, to other ruling families around the Mediterranean regarding the repetitive content and its ability to change the behavior of the public. And although they did not have a TV screen at the time, they had another squarish rectangle sort of instrument called the town square. And this is where the repetitive content would be released either nightly or on the weekend by government play productions. This is why plays and movies are so big in our society. They're really, logically, they're a waste of time. they're sold to us as entertainment, but they are known from the ruling class as entrainment. Because if you can control the repetitive, for example, if you can control the repetitive content, you can control the ideas. If you were back in Medes or ancient Turkey or ancient Greece, and you wanted people to volunteer, men to volunteer for war, which is just ancient ruling families stealing the wealth of other nations. That's all it is. You would produce 4 or 5 months of plays with war themes, and the most dangerous, positively reinforced behavior modification tactic of all time is that the hero gets the girl.
Yeah.
That drives the behavior modification so deep into the male psyche. You would just have to have a play of a war hero getting his pick of the litter when he came home regarding the most beautiful ladies in the Greek town, and simply the next day after the play ended, you have a recruitment table in the agora, and people would be signing up left, right, and center. And this is how you hack the mind of the human. And the thing about psychology and behavior modification and brainwashing, you get to accomplish your goal. You get where you want to go without, and the victim thinks they volunteered for it.
Sure.
So it's sort of like what you're seeing today with people getting triggered to, belly up to the new medicine, where like if you grabbed the average UK citizen and held them down on their lawn and another police officer came up and injected something into them, the average person would be, hey, whoa, something doesn't seem right there. So what they do is they use the psychology to make you get up off your own couch, take time out of your own day, start your own car, drive yourself and wait patiently 6 foot apart and do it to yourself. And that's the real big sort of benefit of behavior modification. You get to do, like, the people who rule us could never do to us what we're doing to ourselves. They don't have the power. The only way they can get us to, we're closing our own businesses. They're not closing them. We're closing them. Now, how are they doing that? They're doing that with the same psychological manipulation techniques that I've been talking about. I hope that makes some sense.
Definitely.
Yeah, it is scary time seeing people rush out and get the vax. And I mean, I couldn't think of anything more scary than being held down and here's your COVID vaccine. Because I've done the research and stuff. And I mean, I haven't vaccinated my third child. He hasn't had one vaccine, and learning a lot about it, making an informed choice, it's like, no, it's an absolute no-go for me. But you can't get people to look out of, they say, oh, you saw it on YouTube, you saw it on Google, it can't be true. But you see it on the mainstream media, it's got to be true. And we know with the censorship at the moment, they're just like, you're in Facebook jail, I can't share anything. And it's ironic that all my guests over the last few weeks, well, most of them can't share a live because they're in jail. Anybody that's got a voice, they're trying to pin down, and I can't see why other people can't see that.
It makes so much sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the reason for that, Shelley, is exactly what I was talking about. Don't forget, repetitive content leads to the belief inside the brain complex. So they're really only trying to control the repetitive messaging. They don't want what's called destructive interference to their message. So in order to completely brainwash a population, it has to be a monosyllabic message with no counter-narrative. So even the censorship is part of the psychological manipulation we're talking about, because it's always a war for the mind of the public. And in order to hijack the belief of the public, you have to make sure that the repetitive content is really repetitive in one direction. And if everybody starts speaking the truth, if the truth tellers get out and start awakening people, and you can cause a program breakdown with truthful content. So you can actually break the hypnosis with certain key truthful phrases that break someone out of their hypnotic trance that they were put into by the TV or the movie screen. And there's no reason to blame the average person for believing in the vaccines, because that's why over the past 30 years there was over 200 Hollywood films on vaccines and zombies and on viruses that would spread prolifically. So the average, now if you go into the annals of science, and if people want some show notes on this, I'll definitely send them to Shelley, but viruses have not been proven to make people sick. Now, this would be shocking, and what we need to focus on is, if anybody heard that and is shocked, remember that. Remember that it's resistance. You're getting resistance there. And we have to go around, we have to explain how the person comes to believe so wholeheartedly that viruses make people sick. Well, it's the movies. And 6-foot distance has not been proven to reduce transmission of disease. They've even tried experiments where they attempted very disgustingly and very ferociously to transfer sickness from sick people to healthy people. There was 500 people with the Spanish flu that was brought into a prison, and the 100 prisoners were used as the healthy control group, if you can imagine this. And they took the snot of the Spanish flu victims, some of them near death. They drew the blood of the Spanish flu victims. And they also took the saliva swabs out of the Spanish flu victims' mouths. And they, if you can believe this, and I can send you the actual medical study that recounts this in great detail, and they put it into a syringe. Now, we could not get away with this today. Blood, saliva, and snot all in one syringe. And they injected it into the healthy prisoner population, 100 people that volunteered for this experiment. Guess how many of the 100 got sick, Shelley?
None.
None. Absolutely none. And so whether it's masking, which has no proof on anywhere, any science library, any medical library on the planet, viruses don't make people sick. Poisons do. And if you poison someone and then kind of look at their poison cells, which decay when they're poisoned, you'll see little particles around them. They're not viruses. It's just debris of the dead cell. And yes, so yeah, people who get sick, they get sick. Sometimes it looks like there's transmission, but no, it's similar situations, similar foods that are making them sick, similar stressful situations. Like when kids go back to school, they don't like going back to school. Kids spiritually and on a soul level don't like school. So of course they get a little sick when they go back, maybe in September. It looks like there was a transmission, but it was actually the same scenario that made them sick. Kid at the house with their parents in safety, not eating the junk food that's sent with most kids to the school. They're not going to get sick. So none of these premises hold any water. And then we go back to someone who was shocked. Someone says, I can't believe you said that, even though we'll send you notes for your show notes, some links, Shelley, to prove all this. They're like, I can't believe you're saying viruses don't make people sick. I really can't believe you said sick people can't make healthy people sick. They can't. It's being tried. It was a theory. It was an okay theory. It was experimented with, and it came up a complete and utter failure. So how does the average person have this belief? Well, it's the psychology I just tried to review for the first half hour of the show. You have World War Z with Brad Pitt. You have Contagion with Matt Damon. You have Legend with Will Smith. You have 28 Days with a pseudo-famous UK actor whose name eludes me at this point in time. You have Dustin Hoffman in Outbreak, an older movie back in the early 90s, I believe. You have Angels and Demons with Tom Hanks. These are all movies about viruses, spreading pathogens, vaccines that save the day. You even have a recent one, Hobbs and Shaw, with Jason Statham and The Rock. Again, more movies about viruses being contagious, ripping through the world, people having to save the world. Well, guess who made those? The same people who are organizing, they've been organizing our repetitive content to hack our subconscious mind since we flew out of the womb. Everything we know is being inserted into us through what we can call TV, Hollywood, and Cineplex University. So the average person who believes vaccines, you can inject health into sick people with poisons, no less. The average person who believes viruses are the only thing that makes them sick. Tequila can't make them sick. Doritos doesn't make them sick. Hot dogs don't make them sick. It's a virus. It's not them. Anybody who believes that, anybody who believes that, you know, if you drank a 26er of tequila and you have a stuffed up nose, somehow I can catch it the next day from you, even if I kiss you. None of these things have been proven. And the only reason someone believes this is because they've been mind controlled and hypno-programmed through all these movies purposely. And it's not so. In hypnosis, if you go to a hypnosis show, whether you look up Darren Brown in the UK, say Anthony Cools would be a very good hypno show to look up for anybody right now. Anthony Cools. Cools is Kools, I believe. If not, it's Cools. In hypnosis, the programming is driven into you when you're in trance, but it's triggered with a very, very particular trigger word or trigger event or trigger symbol. Like my friend was brought up on stage on an X-rated hypnotist show, and they told him that when he would hear Johnny Cash's Burning Ring of Fire, he would scoot along the floor like a dog scratching his anus, like his bum was on fire.
Oh, gosh.
And that's the trigger. So he was hypno-programmed. He was told what he was going to do. That's the hypno-program. And then to set the hypnosis in place, he has to be put into what's called trance. Now, I'll send you another article, Shelley, so you can put up in the show notes, that all TVs and movies have been proven to put you into trance. 100%.
Yeah,
People
I don't doubt
know
that. We get lost sometimes, almost like meditation, don't we? You're so drawn in. And I suppose that's why people go for them, for a bit of escapism. But obviously they're not doing us any good.
You don't feel like you're in a trance, though. You just feel like you're engrossed, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't feel like you're in a trance, but you are in trance.
Yeah.
And you're downloading, like I said, like, say the person's watching a lot of movies, but let's say out of the 200 virus vaccine agent movies over the past 30 years, they might have watched 10. But it's being shown you can hack someone's ideas by 2 repetitions or more.
Yeah.
So they're already 8 repetitions over the 2 repetition threshold. And then the hypnosis is in place that the person thinks viruses infect people and, you know, vaccines are going to save them. And then the trigger comes. So what you're seeing right now is the trigger. Yeah. So when all the newspapers say, oh, the virus is here, there's your trigger. The vaccine is coming, there's your trigger. All hypnosis is programming, and then you're triggered. Programming and triggering. So the person, like my friend, got triggered to scoot along the floor with his bum on fire, you know, in an imaginary way. And trust me, that's exactly what he did. Every time Anthony Cools would play Burning Ring of Fire by Johnny Cash, my friend would squirm out of the seat like his ass was on fire and scoot across the stage. Everybody was laughing at him. He knew 2,000 people were laughing at him. His bum was still on fire. He couldn't stop himself.
It's crazy.
And that's the power of hypnosis. So anyway, I hope that kind of explains what's going on with the movies, the TV shows, why people are getting off their chairs and doing particular things when they're getting triggered by the media with the trigger words, vaccines and viruses.
I've got two questions that have just popped up. One was regarding the viruses. Is the common cold supposed to be a virus? Do you know?
It's supposed to be, but when you go back in the annals of science and medicine, it's not. It's just your body detoxing.
Yeah.
At regular times of the year. So the body detoxes in February, it kind of cleans itself out. It also cleans itself out October or November.
Yeah.
And this sort of observation of natural patterns in the world, the group that rules us is very familiar with recording what's natural and then using it against us. This is the same group who used to measure the stars and figure out when the solar eclipse was coming. And they were the only ones that knew it was coming because they were the only ones writing it down and saying, well, we can maybe use this against the public. So in ancient Mexico, it's the same group, they're worldwide and they're very old. They would say, okay, everybody here in Aztec land or the Olmec or the Mayan culture, they would get on top of the pyramid and say, excuse me, everybody, if you don't give me your gold and your virgins and your boys, I will blank out the sun tomorrow at 12:30. And everybody would say, you're out of your mind, go back to your hut, you're crazy. But guess what happened the next day? And that's the power. That's one of the methods of operation of this group, is that they do record that humans get sick in February and get sick in November. And then they use it against us. And it's natural. And it's not only natural, we need it to stay healthy.
Yeah.
We need the diarrhea. We need the runny nose. I mean, I haven't had diarrhea or runny nose in 10 years since I got healthy. But when I used to go to the pub and do drugs and stay out all night and party like it's 1999 with Prince, yeah, I trust me, my nose was always plugged. I was always blowing my nose. I always had, digestive issues and loose stools and this group really takes advantage of natural tendencies and ways our body protects us and just kind of the natural patterns of the world. And they just reframe it and spin it to their advantage. Just another method of operation that they use against the public.
I just find it confusing with the theory of like terrain theory and germ theory, and that you can't catch a virus, because like in the last 4 months I've had 2 colds, and then it's always about 3 days later my boyfriend comes down with it and starts with the same symptoms, but 3 days later. Because someone said to me, oh, well, you must both have got poisoned at the same time. But then why does his start after mine, always 3 days after?
Well, it could be, and that's this is the kind of scientific observation they won't even allow. Well, maybe having too much Wi-Fi. Like, do you have Wi-Fi in your house? Are you recording on Wi-Fi right now? Because that can cause major inflammation in the system. Yeah. Do you both drink coffee or alcohol? There's a point where the body will give up and just inflame itself to deal with it. And these things, and you're right, it'd be nice to know. It's certainly not a virus, because if I would volunteer to come live with you and your boyfriend, and you could see I'm not going to get sick. So why don't we just have a little scientific experiment about that?
It's just weird, because I don't think he normally gets colds, but every time I've had one, and I've only been with him for 6 months, he's come down with it 3 days later, and he was really sure that he wouldn't, because he doesn't normally get them.
Right.
So it's just a bit interesting, isn't it?
It is a bit interesting. And there's been people like Rupert Sheldrake. I think he's British. And he said that we affect each other through vibration and biophotonic exchange. Oh. So basically, the experiment to be had to figure all this out would be to like a wall, like your boyfriend's on one side of a wall and you're on the other side, but there's no air exchange.
Yeah.
And then if you both get sick, it means you're biophotonically communicating with each other. And they have measured the light packages called biophotons being released and absorbed between people in close quarters.
Yeah, I've been reading a book for a while. It's very deep, and it's a book like someone like yourself could probably read in a day.
I've heard of that.
It's The Invisible Rainbow. I don't know if you've heard of it, Jason.
Yes, about the Wi-Fi.
The
And
history, history of electricity and life by Arthur Furstenberg. And just saying, really, all the studies they've done since we've had electricity and stuff, and how they first came out, and people would come down with illnesses. There's a whole bigger picture here, I'm sure, that we're not seeing. It's like a lot of people have questioned the so-called COVID illness. Did people get it in more areas where 5G's just come out? They're just theories, but none of us actually know, do we? I mean, I don't think my partner will argue with me all the time. He likes fast download. There's nothing wrong with 5G. But then he's not reading any of the stuff that I'm reading and seeing experiments that have been done.
Yeah, and they're using they use the natural cycles against us. It's very natural for someone who microwaves their food or drinks coffee in the morning or wine at night or goes to the pub. They're going to get sick. And then if they take a Tylenol or an Aleve, maybe they're on the birth control pill, maybe they're carrying their cancer-causing cell phone in their back pocket or in their bra, in their purse. Maybe their router's 5 feet away from their couch at night and they don't understand the danger. Everything, whether it's Teflon pans, microwave food, even the very toxic plastic liner that they put in takeout coffee cups that dissolves into the hot coffee to make it completely toxic.
Oh,
They've invented leaded paint, leaded gas, mercurochrome, thimerosal. It doesn't matter what we're of course we're going to get sick. This is the whole very long, decades-old plan, is that they've made us sick for 100 years. They're drowning us in tsunamis of toxins and poisons. And then when someone's get a sniffle, they're going to grab the bobbies are going to grab them, throw that guy to the ground and say he's got COVID. Like, you can see the masterminding behind this agenda. Yeah, we're sick because you made us sick. Now they're using the sickness against us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then even if you're healthy, you're still sick.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, you're incredibly healthy, aren't you? I'm looking at your picture, and it's not just saying that. You obviously work out, and I know by posts and things, you have a real... Are you vegan, Jason?
No, and that's another agenda on its own for men to like fully embrace their testosterone and growth hormone, which are male hormones. They are produced primarily through saturated fat, and the most efficient pathway is like saturated fat through wild game. Right. So no, I'm not a vegan because I've done veganism and I get small and unmuscular, and it's not for everybody. Like, it's not a one size fits all approach, but a lot of men who do, like, men have to become more manly, because that's another agenda in itself. Is this veganism push is all based on repetitive messaging in movies that gets downloaded as our ideas. Like, even in the movie Notting Hill with who's the British actor?
Hugh Grant.
Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts. In that movie alone, well, there was more coffee and alcohol scenes than you could shake a stick at, which is why people drink alcohol and coffee. But there was also 2 to 3 imprints of veganism. And if you watch other movies, like you watch any movie, there's always some sort of veganism push. Why? Well, because this ruling group that is not only working on us to imprint programming about viruses and vaccines and disease, they're also pushing a dietary intake that reduces masculinity. And if anybody doesn't notice that the men are getting very slight and very weak and very feminine and very afraid of the world, they have to be actually not paying attention.
I think it's quite well known in the movement at the moment that lots of our freedom fighters, in England
Yes.
they are, and it's the women that are the ones that are causing the trouble, isn't it? Well, it is over here.
And this is also a push as well. Like, even if you watch the movie Avengers, I think it was in Infinity Wars, or maybe the last version of it, you can see the women were coming to, like, the girl that saved the day was Supergirl, and yeah, it empowers the women. But they've even had animal studies when they sort of castrate the male components, the male animals. They'll draw the blood of the female. The female actually starts to become more male when the male becomes more female. So there's actually invisible communication, sort of like when females have their periods at the same time if they're in the same sorority house. It's called the McClintock effect. So there's invisible exchanges between people. So when males become less male, there's a compensatory, a compensation of a hormonal change in the female to make them more male, because their males are weak.
Yeah.
And this is also being purposely engineered, where the males today are more like obedient lapdogs. They've been so disempowered and so psychologically manipulated to sort of loathe themselves for being men, toxic masculinity, and, don't be too offensive, don't be too strong, don't be too male. And if you knew the group that was organizing this, I'll let you know that they would love nothing more for less men to be around and those men to be more feminized.
Why are they so anti-men, and why do they want this?
The group we're talking about, which is very old, they are from the Middle East, and they are definitely related by blood lineage to the people that rule over your country. If they've had any problem throughout their 3,000 or 5,000 year history, they've always had problems with strong men. So if there's ever been an equalizing force that fuddled or scuttled it was always warrior-like, strong, muscular, male men, like really male. Like, they don't care if they die, you're not taking my stuff. And then they just go and do what men do, which is what they're supposed to be doing right now and what they're not doing. Unfortunately, they're hiding in the corner. They got 2 masks on. They got 7-foot distance because they want to be everybody's friend. That's not a male's job. A male's job isn't to be a people pleaser. A male's job is to be basically, in ancient times, controlled by the female. And when the attack dog is let off the chain, the male rips people to pieces. That's where, and that's what we're missing today. And that's why the females are at the front of the line, where it's supposed to be the males are supposed to be at the front of the line. And if 10 cops attack a lady in the park for protesting, 20 males are supposed to surround those 10 police officers and do what males do. And if some die, some die. And that's what a real male attitude is about. And if 40 police officers surround the 20 real men, 100 other real men are supposed to surround those 40 police officers and say, we're going to teach you a lesson. That's what male cosmic energy is supposed to be doing on this planet, and it's being pushed into the role of obedient lapdog right now.
Awesome. And I mean, well, it's not awesome, but fascinating information. And I mean, we see a lot, and I bet it's even more so in your country, but all of the whole gender issues over here, all this transgender stuff, and supermarkets now that do gender neutral clothing, and children that are allowed to choose if they want to, change their sexuality from such a young age. What do you think about that?
It's all part of the same agenda. It looks like it's a little different, but it's all the same. Their end goal is to make the population so sexually confused that the state will mosey up to the mic like Bojo the Clown, and he'll say, the population, the reproduction has to be now taken over and outsourced to the state in the state hatcheries. And then you get into a hand-tail situation where this is already written down. I mean, Aldous Huxley, I think he was a UK citizen, had written this all out in Brave New World, where you make the population so infertile and so sexually confused that only the wealthy are deemed intelligent enough to have sex and reproduce. So it's only their gene line that gets pushed into the future, and they will produce the slave class through genetic modification in the state hatcheries.
Oh.
So it's all part of the same agenda. You're just going to make them so confused, and the agenda, more long term than that, is just to have females, no males.
None at all.
Pardon?
None at all.
Only in the ruling class camps.
Right.
There will be the only males. And you can see why. I mean, if you look at Boris Johnson or Fauci or Gates or, Scott Morrison or who's the guy that runs our country? Justin Trudeau.
Oh, yeah.
Or pretend runs. He's on the puppet string like everybody else. But if you notice, these are weak males. And for lack of a better word, these people couldn't get laid in a horror house with a pocket full of money. So if you can see why they don't want, they want full control. They want full control of the female stock, and they don't want any competition to their very inhibited and low testosterone sexuality. The people behind what's going on right now, they are the weakest of the human herd. And throughout the millennia, they've never had the muscles. They've never been able to push people around. That's why they've mastered in behavior modification psychology to make us do to ourselves what they draw out in the boardroom. They can't come and force us to change the sexuality of our kids, but they can use behavior modification technology mastered and honed to a fine point in the Tavistock Institute in London. They can use that behavior modification psychology to manipulate a 6-year-old to think that they want to be another gender.
Oh, it's awful, isn't it? I mean,
we're under attack.
Yeah, I know somebody that works at a secondary school, and they've actually got 2 pupils that say they're transgender now, and they've got their own separate toilets, but one of them just wants to be referred to as where. Or what? Yeah, and that's what they've got to call it. We all
want to fit in, and that's part of behavior modification too. And there's definitely flaws. I mean, like a kamikaze pilot. The subconscious of a kamikaze pilot in World War II Japan, the kamikaze pilot does what he does, killing himself because the conscious mind is told if you kill yourself, you'll be more well-liked and you'll fit in better. And the subconscious goes, that's where you want to do, because that's what the subconscious job is to do, is to become well-liked under any means possible. So you're well-liked, but you're dead.
Yeah.
So what drives people to do illogical things, if you know how to manipulate a person psychologically, you control the positive and negative reinforcement. All mind control is you give positive reinforcement for the behavior you want, and you put negative repercussions for the behavior you don't want. So in the schooling and in the media and in the cartoons, they're purposely organizing all the media for young kids to positively reinforce sexual confusion. And that's simply just like the kamikaze pilot. They walk right into it, and their lives will be devastated because of it. But this part of the brain that could be hacked in this manner it has no ability to judge long-term consequences. It just says this is the popular group group's the safer group. The teacher's the authority figure. The teacher tells me this is completely normal. And then the subconscious bites in like a pit bull and won't let go.
There also seem to be people that are, maybe in their 40s, and they've had, they want to change their gender, and they've had kind of tortured, from what I know of people I know have had tortured past where they haven't ever felt like they've been the gender they were born, and they want to change. But I guess that's different because they're adult, and so it does happen naturally as well, do you think?
It definitely can. I mean, you're going to find this throughout history, but you'll also find chemicals do this as well. Like Professor Tyrone Hayes in Berkeley, California, Berkeley University in California, he found that atrazine, which is the third leading pesticide sprayed on American crops, changed the sexual orientations of the lab animals he was working on. And also mercury did the same thing in, I think it was storks outside a particular plant in in Florida. And there's all kinds of chemicals. They called them gender bending. There's gender bending chemicals that can change sexual orientation, or they can make men more feminine. Even the BPA, the bisphenol A, is proven. There's a great documentary, if anybody wants to look it up, made by the CBC here in Canada. That's the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. I like to call it the Canadian Brainwashing Corporation. But the documentary was called The Disappearing Male, and it was bisphenol A and all these estrogen mimickers in the plastic bottles were implicated in driving the male birth rate down to levels where probably not going to be any males in 300 years. And the average person would say, oh, that's really bad. That sounds bad. And to people like me who investigate it, we know exactly what that is. This is an attack.
Yeah.
This isn't a misunderstanding of the science. This is a weaponization of the documented science. They're actually doing the research and saying, what chemical can we put lining the tin cans? They even put BPA on your cash register receipts. Now, why would they do that?
Oh, it's crazy.
Right.
Crazy.
Right. So everything I'm talking about, it's not a misunderstanding of the science. Someone didn't miss the memo. There's a boardroom where people are like, I'm going to write on the board our next goal, which is the disappearing of males or the feminization of the existing males. And I want you 50 scientists to tell me how I can do this.
When do you reckon this agenda started against male, reducing the male and all this stuff? When do you reckon it started?
Oh, I recognize this. I went to a private school, British private school in St. John's, Newfoundland. It had the British format. And I remember when I was in grade 4, and they were teaching about the war between the UK Redcoats and the French. The UK Redcoats had the red uniforms and the blue for the French. And the war was in 1700, maybe 1800. And they would line them up 20 yards apart. No one was hiding behind bushes. They would just volley their muskets at each other. No one was hiding behind trees. And even as a 10-year-old, I was like, hold on a second here. Excuse me, we were taught by priests, of course. I'd say, Father, this doesn't make any sense to me. To win a war, if I was really wanted to win the war, I would tell my soldiers to hide behind trees, ambush people, guerrilla warfare. And you say, well, no, this is a gentleman's war. This is how the UK would fight all their wars in the Commonwealth areas. And then I found out that the son at the time of the UK royal, the king, he married the daughter of the French king. So they're all connected. Why are they having wars over land and then friends behind the scenes? Well, easy. This is where it started. They would plan these wars. This is a very, very old pattern of eliminating males. And it goes on today. Every war that you're seeing today in the United States is the main crematorium for males. But every war that you have going on today, they're battling over lands that are owned, both lands that are being fought over. It's owned by the same group. So why are they bringing U.S. troops over and other troops? Is exactly what I said before.
Yeah.
It's about the culling of the male. Like, why would they for 300 years have people volley muskets at each other at point blank range? Doesn't make any sense. But that's the power, the trance, and the mind programming in government school. We're like, oh, I'll just repeat the lie that it's a gentleman's war. I'll get my dog treat. I'll get my gold star. I'll get my 5 out of 5, my 10 out of 10, my A plus, and my Smurf stamp. There's your positive reinforcement for becoming a rewarded liar to yourself.
Fascinating. We're going to stop there a minute, Jason, just for a quick music break, and so that people can go and grab a quick drink or something.
They'll need a drink after that.
They will. So we're going to play a song by Danny Allen. It's called Spiritual Revolution. It was shared to me, and I believe I'm allowed to share it. It's been advertised. So just asking if there's anybody out there that's songwriters, etc. If you've got any stuff that's not copyrighted and you want to send it in, please do. So we'll be back in a couple of minutes with Jason Christoff. And can I just say, Jason, that don't shout while the song's on or anything, because it's like all connected. And for some reason, I'm not clever enough yet to work out how to mute your end.
I'll mute myself.
Well, there you are. It's that simple. Right, we'll be back in a couple of minutes, guys. Wow, that's really good, isn't it? I like the bit of a mention of Bill Hicks there. He was awesome in his time. Welcome back, Jason. Are you still with us?
Still here.
Yeah, still here. Lovely. Thanks so much, because obviously it's the afternoon there, and you're a busy man, I know. So I am really grateful, by the way. I know we've been trying to sort a date for the last few weeks. So where do we go? There's so much we can talk about. Do you want to carry on with that point you were just making about the men, or do you want to move on to, I'm thinking, coffee and cancer and alcohol?
Yeah, all the people will be running for the doors now, but just as long as people know that there's, say, 150 agendas running simultaneously, and there's 150 pieces in the average watch, and they all work together to accomplish one goal, which is telling the time. And all these, the anti-male agenda, or the attack on the alpha, and the attempt to raise the beta males and make them compliant lapdogs, that's just one facet of the attack. It's a major one, but it's only one facet. There's a lot more, and if people want to see this stuff, they have to get their head out of their screens and get their head back in reality. I mean, that's what the word soul is for. Soul means, people think it's a spiritual ghost, but soul is actually the word that describes where your foot hits the ground, the sole of your foot. And what that means is that for you to come into contact with your soul, you have to pay attention to the ground you're walking on, to the earth you're living on, to what's going on inside your environment. And the soul also means phonetic soul is like soleil, French for sun, which means the light. You have to turn toward the light and see what's going on on the earth, not through your screen. The screen is a fake sun, and it gives us fake, negative, repetitive content that obscures our reality. That's why they call it a screen, because a screenshot in football is when a defender gets in front of the netminder and blocks their view. We have to stop screening ourselves, obscuring our view of reality, get back in touch with our soul, with what's happening on the planet, and not let the fake light, the fake sun, the screen, the TV screen, influence what we see on a repetitive basis and obscure what we believe and what our ideas are, and mainly the idea of who we are and what we're doing on this planet. So we can move on, but I hope that makes some sense.
Yeah, I find it fascinating that this whole thing, because obviously we are all now aware, us, in this movement, how the TV has been such a big part of driving people's behaviour. But listening to you, I'm just realising how it's affecting like nearly everything, you know, on so many levels. But I just wanted to quickly ask you, apart from what the programme's talking about, what have you got any opinions on the like wavelengths or the particular light that comes from screens? Is it affecting us on any other way?
Yeah, this group never hits you with one volley at a time. There's silent sound, there's the flicker rate. Anything that's thrown on the screen that stays on the screen for less than a half second can only be picked up by the subconscious mind. So they use clip rates where if you wanted to analyze how they're programming, you literally have to use the remote control and slow things down. They're always drowning you in repetitive content that's dark, immoral, satanic. I'm not even a religious person, but that's the word. And, alcohol, coffee, just use your mouth as a garbage compactor. That's the primary message. And if you get sick, blame a virus. You can see how that's very enticing, right? I mean, it's not you and your lackadaisical, slovenly lifestyle. It's this virus. Yeah. And this victim mentality that's also pushed as a repetitive message. It goes hand in hand with the victim mentality where people want no connection, no personal responsibility for any outcomes in their lives. So if you drink and smoke and drink coffee and stay up all night and you're covered in Wi-Fi and you eat food that's not fit for a maggot to consume, you get sick, virus. You can see how it's all kind of laced together into one big tapestry.
And most of the world drinks coffee on a regular basis, don't they?
Yeah, it's the most widely used psychoactive substance in the world, and it's used for a reason. The UK royals, which aren't really from UK, they're from Germany, and they're not really from Germany, they're from Egypt. But they've come across the caffeine as perfect to keep the slaves sedated. I mean, caffeine, 1 8-ounce cup of coffee cuts blood flow to the brain by 52%.
Wow.
So life's hard enough, and you can see this. You can go to YouTube and just put in MRI, which is the brain scan equipment, MRI, ABC. ABC is the broadcast company here in the U.S., and put coffee. Because there's a great ABC report where they get the reporter to be uncaffeinated before she goes in the MRI machine. They scan her brain, and then she comes out, sits up on the table, and drinks 1 8-ounce cup of coffee, goes back into the MRI machine, and the doctor at the time was eyeballing the results and said, that's kind of odd. The 1 8-ounce cup of coffee has cut blood flow to your brain by 40%. And then when it was measured accurately, it was 52. He was just eyeballing. But that's in the report.
And we're led to believe that coffee is a stimulant and will make us wake up and concentrate, energize us, so to speak.
Yeah, and why do you think they advertise it like that?
Yeah.
After hearing me talk for the last hour and 15 minutes, I hope people can understand. And this is why there's tea time, because the morning tea, caffeine has a half-life of 6 hours. So you got to keep the slaves sedated. You got to keep them medicated. So they'd have the tea time around 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, get them jacked up on the caffeine again. But the tea delivers caffeine maybe in the 70 milligram range. During the Crusades, they discovered the coffee in the Middle East, the Arabica bean. And the UK royals were like, are you serious? There's something that makes 2 or 3 times as much caffeine? Let me see that. And then you get this tranquilization and sedation effect, and it kills you. So if you drink coffee, you will be euthanized with a smile on your face. It causes so much disease, but it also tranquilizes the person to the pain that the disease is trying to scream out through the neurological system. Coffee, there's a book called Caffeine Blues by Stephen Chernisky. And it's a library of many different books. And that book sits in my library in the horror section of the nutrition area by itself. Because when I read that book, I didn't drink coffee. I drank coffee. I started drinking coffee when I was about 45 or 44, and I drank it for about 3 summers. I would only drink it on my escapades to Santorini. I would only drink it when I was on vacation, because when I drink it when I was working, it would just drive me crazy. Almost like I was going to kill someone. So I could only drink it when I was relaxed. So I read this book, and every page I turned was, you got to be joking me. There's no way coffee's this bad. It causes so many diseases: carpal tunnel, ulcers, Crohn's, colitis, strokes, peripheral strokes, heart attacks, depression, high cholesterol, blood clotting, accelerated aging, inflammation. There's so many diseases that coffee causes. Insomnia, many emotional problems as well. It just drains your energy. The way coffee produces energy in your system is simple. It triggers, caffeine is an alkaloid poison. And the reason some plants produce it is because alkaloid poisons can be used as natural pesticides to kill bugs that try to eat the leaves or the pods, or the plant itself. Like the coffee plant will reach out with a very long appendage that it grew and drop a coffee pod on another plant, and the caffeine kills the plant. Therefore, the coffee plant itself gets more sunlight. And so we're drinking poison when we drink coffee. And it gives us a fight or flight reaction. And the fight or flight reaction always gives us more energy, because the body liberates energy when it wants to get rid of poison, because it needs to make our heart beat faster and make our blood flow faster, as to get the poison through the system faster. So that's why we appear that we're getting a big energy push. Now, that energy push, the activation of the fight or flight, it's the same energy liberation as getting chased by a pit bull every morning and said, look, I'm going to go get chased by that pit bull again. All right?
Yeah.
How's your energy stores? And then you don't eat. How's your energy stores 6 months from now, a year from now, 1 month from now? Well, you're getting exhausted. And then when you get up and you don't get chased by the pit bull, you can barely get into the car, because you had your energy extracted all the time. There is no energy inserted into you through caffeine. It's only an extraction through the fight or flight. It's called the limbic system activation. It's like getting mugged. That's not an energy liberation. That's an energy removal.
Would you say it's the same for tea then, or anything that's got caffeine in it, basically?
Guaranteed, and that's why there's a tea. I mean, the reality is your Starbucks, Bill Gates, he didn't start Starbucks, but there was 7 years after Starbucks started, it was going to go bankrupt. I think it had about 13 or, a handful of shops, mostly in Seattle. And then here comes William Gates Sr. and Bill Gates Jr. to give Starbucks its seed funding. Now, why would he be so interested in caffeinating people when it literally reduces brain system? And when you're limbically activated, you're of the lowest IQ. You have a child IQ, and you also don't have the brain complex capacity to judge long-term consequences of your actions, and you're more reflexively obedient to authority, because you're already in the fight or flight, which means you're already scared And when you're scared, you're always looking for a solution from authority. So why do you think Bill Gates wants a Starbucks in every corner in London?
Yeah. Bill Gates, he's just everywhere, isn't he?
Oh, he's the human farm. And if you go back to who these people really are, we'll just leave it at that. People really need to understand they're living more in a sci-fi world than they are a real world at this point in time.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll diverse a minute. So you said when you drink the odd cup of coffee, you was 43?
Yes.
Yeah. How old are you now, Jason?
51.
Wow, okay.
And I don't dye my hair and I don't dye my beard.
And you don't work out, do you?
I do work out.
You said that's the last time you had a coffee when he was 43?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
So, I mean, how did you get to where you are now? As in, like you said, you lived it up in the younger days, you partied, you drank alcohol, coffee, took drugs. What made you change your path?
Oh, I almost died. I was almost dead. I was living out those programs that were put into me through the movies, and I thought, if I could just party a little harder to get to the top of the pyramid where all the hot chicks were and all the money was, that would be my life's ambition. I would be life fulfilled. But I became so sick from the drugs and the drinking, and my body was showing me what I call the pain teacher. I couldn't walk. My left leg was dragging my left leg around. It was almost like it wasn't attached to my body anymore. So I was having what's called referred pain by different organs in my body. The body doesn't speak a language. It speaks in symptoms. I wasn't listening. I didn't listen to all the other symptoms for the 6 years before that. And then a very skilled practitioner from what's called the CHEK Institute in California, CHEK. It's run by a man, his name is Paul Chek, CHEK, and he runs the top healing institute on the entire planet, and he qualifies people to be healers on all accounts. So I was sent this healer from the Chek Institute that knew all my problems were mental, were from the TV, were from the movies, and were for the government schools. There was no manipulation of the body needed. There was no supplements needed, no special herbs. She just knew, your ideas are backwards, and you're not in contact with your soul. You're not seeing that you're using your mouth as a garbage compactor. You're programmed with kamikaze mind control. You're killing yourself, and you keep killing yourself the more you see you're killing yourself. You can't stop. You're brainwashed. You're hypno-programmed, and you keep getting triggered. And I was triggered a lot because I was very successful in business. And that's one of the triggers, that if you start making lots of money, you buy a Porsche, you buy rounds of shooters for the bar, you do big amounts of cocaine. And I was getting triggered in that way because that's what the movie said I was supposed to do when I came across lots of money. And then she just started psychologically defragmenting my mental hard drive. And the more I defragmented my hard drive and got in contact with my soul and started to pay attention and get a working relationship with my body and start pushing back on the satanic doctrine that's fired out of the TV, radio, newspaper, movie screen every day, I started to basically, what you hear today, although it might sound, I'm not too sure if everybody thinks it's intelligent or I sound interesting, this is sort of the natural status of a human without pollution.
Did you find it hard making that change?
Yeah, I did, and I found out psychologically that we're pack animals and that we become very afraid to stand in a smaller herd. That's what most of the psychological manipulation is based on, is herd behavior. You want to be with the group, Only 40% of the people are taking the vaccines. They'll say it's 60 because that's more than half, and then the subconscious mind says, oh, the bigger group's over there, we got to run. So it was intimidating and scary to not drink with my friends, to not do cocaine with my friends, to be richer than my friends, to drive nicer cars than my friends, to go on nicer vacations. It wasn't too easy to get all that stuff when you stop. I used to spend probably $60,000 a year on alcohol and drugs. So it's not too hard to accumulate wealth if that's your income and you're using that amount of financial resources to blow your own head off. But yeah, I literally use the same brainwashing techniques I teach my clients. And I mean, I have a self-sabotage coaching school where I teach these brainwashing methods to about 300 coaches now across the world. And I use the same techniques on myself. So I convinced my subconscious mind that the rich group was the bigger group.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And I said that I know how to do that because I know the art of brainwashing. And I convinced the subconscious mind that the small group was the drinking group, and the bigger group was a group that didn't drink alcohol. And then the subconscious becomes afraid to drink alcohol, afraid to do drugs, afraid to eat bad food, afraid to eat takeout. And so I reprogram myself. I could reprogram myself back the other way too. I get better results reprogramming and brainwashing myself to be abundant, as opposed to letting. You have a choice in life. You can let the movies or TV program you and control your repetitive content that you see, and therefore the movies and the TV and the government announcements will control your behavior. Or you can learn about brainwashing. You can control your own repetitive content. And if you can control your own repetitive content, you can manufacture it yourself. So the repetitive content that I put into my eyes and my ears are like, oh, everybody's rich, everybody's happy, everybody's smart, everybody's tough, everybody's in shape. And the subconscious mind says, hey, Jay, this is what we got to do to fit in. We got to mirror the bigger group. And the subconscious would say, oh, the bigger group, from all the repetitive images that I'm seeing, the bigger group is abundant, and it's healthy, and it's loving, and it's evolutionary. And I tell my subconscious mind, yeah, bozo, I'm the one that put all those images in your brain. And the subconscious says, well, I don't care, but that's how I roll. This is what we're going to do now. We're going to be abundant like everybody else. I'm like, okay, fine.
So what advice would you give to someone, right? So I can guess lots of people like me drink coffee, drink tea. I know it's wrong. I drink wine, but I'm in a rut. I would like to. And I was watching one of your other podcasts and listening, and when I did the whole maths, I was like, oh my God. And I totally get what you're saying when you think if you spend X amount, and actually that's an extra amount of your abundance if you're not throwing it away on things like that. But I can't imagine waking up in the morning tomorrow and not having a cup of coffee. But perhaps that's the whole point. I need to imagine me waking up and drinking something else. Reprogramming that way. That's
where it starts.
Right.
It's like I have programs for as low as 99 American dollars. If anybody wants to email me, where it's a full program and it describes, I don't go around peddling my wares, but if someone wants to do it the right way and make sure that you know how to hack this part of the brain. This brain has the subconscious, which is the part of the brain that produces the script that you will act out, whether it's just like tomorrow, Shelley, you're going to be acting out a script, and you could push back on that script with the coffee in the morning, for a week, but eventually the subconscious laughs at you because it controls 93% of the power behind your behavior. So you only have 7% chance of overcoming a program that controls 93% of your behavior.
Wow.
Unless you program the 93 to dislike coffee. And now you're cooking. So what I do is I make sure that 93% is programmed away from things that are going to hurt you. You're drinking coffee because the 93% that pushes the script, that's a lot of percentage there, a lot of power. You're drinking the coffee because you've watched Notting Hill. And in Notting Hill, I think I counted the impressions of what is the first scene in Notting Hill? You got Hugh Grant walking down. He runs into Julia Roberts. What does he spill on her?
Coffee.
Right, but you don't see it. But if you go back, everybody, I know it's in the UK. I liked the movie a little bit. It was kind of fluffy and warm. But if you go, just count how many coffee imprints that you see. And that includes coffee machines in the background, coffee mugs, take out coffee cups, and coffee shops in the background. You'll get into the hundreds of imprints. So that's why you're drinking coffee, because I've analyzed hundreds of movies, if not thousands. And there's no doubt about it that coffee is the top repetitive content in all movies. Alcohol is second, coffee's number one. Number one. So that's why you're drinking the coffee. So you've already been pre-programmed, and you can wrestle with this part of the brain and try to stop coffee, but it's 7% versus 93%. This is why I have these programs. So I'm going to change that 93% to be the portion that's fighting to quit the coffee.
I might have to take you up on this. I think there's lots of things I'd like to change for the better. I think I'm 44 and I do struggle with my health. I think I shouldn't be feeling like this. But like you say, I feed garbage in my mouth, and I'm well aware of this. We do most of our cooking and stuff, but coffee, wine, a few cigarettes in the evenings. None of it's good for you. But I can't imagine my life without it.
Right, and that's what the people who rule you, when they roll by in their Rolls Royce or their golden carriage, they laugh because they're the ones that put the cigarette in your mouth. If you want to see how the cigarette was put in the female's mouth, you can go to YouTube and you want to look up Torches of Freedom. And it's a great 5 or 6 minute compilation of mind control techniques that got women smoking in 1929. Wow. And the behavior modification manipulation that made women starting to smoke, because they generally did not smoke until the 1930s. And so they laugh, like when the Queen goes by in the golden carriage, you're never going to see her lighting up a cigarette because she knows it's bad. She's outside the mind control. And they laugh because you're wrestling with yourself. Like Pigpen from Charlie Brown? Yeah. He's got that filth kind of vibrating around him at the same time, all the time. This is how the people who rule us see us. They laugh. They're like, we did that to them. They drink alcohol. They smoke cigarettes, they drink coffee, they use their mouth as garbage compactors, they go take poison, wait in line at the emergency, and then eat the poison along with their alcohol. They laugh because they did it all. It's all poison. You live in an indoctrination and poison-based control grid. And if you were to stop poisoning yourself, which you can't unless you know how to reprogram the subconscious, you would see all of it. You'd see it all so clearly. You could see through my eyes. It's basically everything the government does. I mean, they're making you wear masks as it cuts the oxygen off. And then even in Canada, the blue masks that they make the teachers wear, that you have to wear mandatory if you go to the emergency or the surgery, as you guys call it. The masks, the blue masks, have what's called a graphene warning. Graphene causes cancer. So the blue masks all cause cancer. And a lack of oxygen causes cancer as well. Again, is it a misunderstanding of the science? No, not at all. It's a weaponization of the science. It's the same thing as the alcohol, the cigarettes, the coffee. You're getting destroyed by this behavior modification psychology, which makes you run after your worst life. It's like you're running east looking for a sunset. It's like rearranging the furniture on the deck of the Titanic. It's futile.
Yeah, fascinating. I think I am going to take you up, Jason, and then what we'll do is we'll have you back again, and we'll we can discuss
Yeah,
a bigger subject.
You could bring me back for the questions, and like if anybody else wants this, it's half price. It's usually $199. I have a discount at $99, and if anybody just wants to even ask me a question, even, throw some insults my way, it's okay. Email me at jason@freedomfromselfsabotage.com. Again, it's jason@freedomfromselfsabotage.com. And I'll show you documentaries or mind control movies, just so that your government, your Boris Johnson, your Justin Trudeau, your Biden, they're given, all their speeches are written by psychology PhDs. In masters in behavior modification to make you do stuff that has no benefit for you.
They've made fools out of us, basically, haven't they?
Oh,
all of us.
That would be the understatement of the century.
I've got a question. What's it like in Canada, and what can you see a way out of this mess that we're all in?
Well, they've been doing They've been doing this to us a long time. So it's not just it's a ramping up now. They're really trying to take control. They think everybody's in deep hypnosis. A lot of people are, but a lot of people aren't. Canada's it's really bad. And the smart money is looking to move to Mexico or Nicaragua at this point.
The smart money?
Yeah, because it's going to be this Canada and the Five Eyes nations, Canada, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States. These places are going to be very similar to Cuba in about 5 years.
Do you mean as in like a cashless system?
No, it'll be like you won't even be able to leave. Like in Cuba, you're not allowed to leave.
Oh, God.
And it's so poor.
Are you saying the smart people will be going to Mexico soon?
Yeah, there's a huge flight of wealth and capital right now out of Canada, out of the U.S., say if you wanted to go live in Mexico, you can gain permanent residency, which means you can live there and you can work there, and all you have to do is invest $85,000. Now, if you just want to move there and not work there, I believe the amount is less. So if you come with your own savings, I think you can enter the country and never come back to Canada, and you might have to pay $45,000 American. You might have to show a leased house with the value of $45,000 or buy a house worth at least that. And you're just allowed to leave, and you can go to Mexico and never come back. And in Nicaragua, it's only $35,000, and in Panama, it's only $7,000.
You've been doing your research, so are you thinking of moving then?
Oh my! Because if you don't move, see, this is what the UK residents have to understand. These lockdowns are about theft. So what they're going to do is they've mastered this technique with the third world countries. So third world countries, they would loan money to, create havoc in the economic markets. The interest rates would go up, and the third world countries could never pay back the loans. And then the world banks, which are just buildings that either print paper money or create digital numbers on screens, say, okay, you can't pay us back. We'll do the debt forgiveness, but you got to give us the hydro dam, the highways, the bridges, and anything else, the banks, everything. So all these lockdowns are not really about the lockdowns or the bankruptcies that are coming from them. This is about the money being handed out in regards to the lockdowns to pretend to keep people afloat. So they're going to bankrupt each country in succession. And then what they're going to do, and this is why they don't care about Bitcoin or how much people are making money on the stock market, because they're going to take it all. Because the people of the UK and Canada and the US and Australia don't know that their house is registered through the bank with the government as chattel against the loans from the world banks. And when your country goes bankrupt, it's like you going bankrupt. If you go bankrupt, they're going to come do the bankrupt and trustee proceedings on your estate, and you have to give up your estate. And this is why Klaus Schwab and the mental defectives over at the World Economic Forum came out with a video 3 years ago, or it might even be 5 years ago, saying by 2030 you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. And this is how they're going to make sure you own nothing, is that this COVID-19 liarrhea, a virus that has not been sequenced in its full genetic sequence, which means doesn't exist, compiled with a RT-PCR testing machine that routinely tests between 80 to 100% of healthy people as having COVID, when COVID doesn't exist and they're perfectly healthy. It's all about locking people down, not to really bankrupt. The bankruptcies they do want, but they're trying to really bankrupt the whole country by giving out too much money to their friends. And then they're going to do a repossession, a recapture of every bank account, every house, every car, every asset, every stock you own will be bona fide property of the world banks. And that by 2030, that's why Klaus Schwab said by 2030, you will own nothing and you will be happy. And that will only be in the EU and the Five Eyes nations. They'll roll it over to Mexico and Nicaragua second, but we're hoping that people rebel and shut the entire operation down.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not about the grizzly bear attacks your campsite. Sometimes it's not about running faster than the grizzly. Sometimes it's about running faster than the person next to you.
Yeah. But if everyone moves, jumps ship to Mexico and places like that, then there won't be anyone to rebel. So I guess some of us have got to stay put, haven't we?
I don't.
Well, you don't. But you'll see it all unfold where Boris Johnson in 2 years, they will all talk on the same day. Trudeau, Biden, there'll probably be Kamala Harris. They'll say, "We protected you from a virus that doesn't exist. We did a great job of giving all your money to our friends and making them billionaires and trillionaires. And we're billionaires and trillionaires because we got bribed. But thank God for us. We saved you all." They'll have a Memorial Day for Boris Johnson because he saved the UK with his policies, his spending. And it was all pre-planned decades in advance to bankrupt the country.
Yeah.
So that the World Bank could repossess the country's assets like a local bank will repossess an individual's assets.
Yeah.
It's like, wow. I've never had it explained to me in that way before. So that's great. We're moving on. We haven't got too much longer left, and I want to change.
I don't know how many people are still listening. They're probably stone cold drunk down at the pub after that hour and 45-minute rant.
No, just no. It's fascinating. I want to know your views about parenting, Jason, because you've got a daughter, haven't you?
Yes.
So how do you protect her through all this? I mean, obviously she's not going to drink tea or coffee. I don't know how old your daughter is. Do you homeschool?
I don't homeschool. By the time I found out how bad the school system was, she was already in school with a whole bunch of friends.
Yeah.
And I'm one part of the marriage. My wife is probably not on board as much as me with the homeschooling, and she wants my daughter to socialize as well. So the next card to be played by myself is unschooling when she is around me and educating her on how the system works. So I've constantly educated her in the same way that I'm talking to both of you tonight. So right. She knows about all the agendas. She knows what the school system's for. She knows she needs to get a business started instead of a job. She knows the dangers of coffee, alcohol, peer pressure, herd pressure. And she knows all these things, and she uses that knowledge to protect her wherever she goes.
And how old is she?
14.
14, wow. So did you have to bring in the whole screen time and stuff like that? I find it hard. I've got a 7-year-old, and he's got older siblings, but in theory, because they're so much older, he's like an only child. And this whole, I've spoken to people the last few days and they're like, oh, does it matter? And I'm like, well, because I'm stressed, no, it does, but it's tugging at my heartstrings because, you know, they're watching YouTube and stuff like that. And it's like, what do people do these days? You know, with no social side.
Well, the first thing I do is hardwire her devices. So I've hardwired, the Wi-Fi is extremely dangerous. It's cancer causing. It's a carcinogen. And of course the people who rule us know that. That's part of the plan. Get rid of as many people as possible. And we do it to ourselves. Like I said, they laugh at us. We buy their devices because, you know, like if the government showed up and put a cancer-causing transmitting device in your pocket and put a gun to your temple and said, Shelley, you got to keep this cancer-causing device in your pocket all day. You'd be like, hey, I see what you're doing there. So they launch it in a way where you don't suspect it because you paid $800 for your iPhone 11 or i11, whatever you call it. It disguises it really well because you're doing it to yourself, and that's what the behavior modification is for. They couldn't kill you this fast themselves that you're killing yourself. That at the speed you're killing yourself, they could never accomplish it. And that's why it's so hard to see, because you think it's your habits, and you think it's, you know, capitalism. You think Starbucks is there because someone wants to make money. But Starbucks is subsidized. That's why it's on the corner, feeding you this brain-damaging coffee. You got the cancer-causing cell phone in your pocket. So I've hardwired all her devices, so at least she's not getting the cancer-causing Wi-Fi. And you can do that very easily. There's basically devices that plug into your router, and then you hardwire to the next electrical outlet, and then someone can go to any other electrical outlet in the house and plug in the hardline internet to it. Anywhere in the house, any outlet.
Like the old school, really, the Ethernet cable and for the router. Router,
it just goes from the router to an electrical outlet, and then anybody in the house can plug into the electrical outlet and get the internet. They're only about $40.
Yeah, and you just use a wire rather than Wi-Fi. Yeah.
We definitely don't have Wi-Fi, but she picks up the Wi-Fi from our relatives that live across the road, and I try to curtail that as much as possible. But when she does watch something, I will say, what did you see? What were if she watches a movie, I say, what agendas did you see? Did you see the alcohol? Did you see the coffee? How many gender confusing messages were there? Because there's nothing wrong with anything to have to do with the LGBT community, but the patterning is there and the agenda is there. And I tell people, you got to watch for these agendas that change the behavior and change the thoughts of the people, especially the youth watching these particular programs. It's very important that my daughter knows how to count how many agendas are in play in one of the movies that she's watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating.
If you switch off the Wi-Fi in your house, some people would say, "Oh, but it's all around us because everyone else has got it." What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, well, I have a cell phone too, and one of the great researchers in the detriments of Wi-Fi. If anybody wants to find out how dangerous Wi-Fi is, they should go to the www.theemfguy.com. His name is Nick Pineau. EMF stands for electromagnetic frequency, theemfguy.com. But if you go to these pages, you'll see that distance is your friend when it comes to Wi-Fi. So with my cell phone, I got it on my passenger seat because I run many businesses. It's got to be on. And then if I do take the call, it's on the speaker, never to my ear, and it's all, very far away. And then when I get to, say, one of my fitness clubs, I will make sure the phone doesn't come with me, and if it does, it's very, very far away on a different piece of equipment or a desk or something like that.
Yeah.
So we can just make such massive changes by these little things, can't we, really?
How do you carry your phone around? Like, if you need to go on a walk, what do you do with your phone then?
I just turn it to airplane mode. I'll never put it on my body. I tell my staff and my key players, my key managers, like, you're not going to get me all the time. So don't crap your pants or put pressure on me. I said, if I'm at the beach where I'm walking, or if I'm tanning outside or something, or like when I'm walking in Santorini or Greece, I'm not going to put my phone on and stick it in my pocket. You're just asking for trouble. That's the worst thing you could do, phone in the pocket. When I used to train people, one of my friends had testicular cancer on his right testicle. He kept his phone right front pants pocket. And then another guy had a tumor on his sciatic nerve, on his left sciatic nerve. He put his cell phone in the left back pants pocket. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
It is. You've got me thinking about all the Wi-Fi hotspots and everything now. So, one quick question now before we round up, Jason. I mean, what are the most things that people tend to come to you with, needing help with?
I think just they're more interested in a lot of the reverse brainwashing that I do. They're like, yeah, I heard about you could hypnotize me to be rich. What programs do you have? I heard it was great. And that's what most people reach out about. I get a lot of questions, but it doesn't matter if someone wants to start a business, or they want to have better relationships, or they want to quit an addiction, they want to stop smoking, or they just want to organize their office and, clean up their house a little bit, start working out on a regular basis without buying a piece of home equipment and then just letting it sit there as a clothing rack. No matter what your goal, you have to address that programming first, because all the programming you've taken in, doesn't matter if it's Disney or Avengers Affinity War, it's all negative. If you knew how brainwashing works, these things program you for absolute disaster. You'll be a complete and utter human mess. You won't know why. You'll be depressed, miserable, overweight, addicted, and bankrupt. And no matter how much you grapple with this part of the brain, it's like trying to wrestle with an 800-pound gorilla. It'll always have its way with you unless you know there's a special language, a special programming language where you can trick it to be its best, the same way that your human farmers tricked it to be your worst. And that's where I get most inquiries.
Wow. Have you got anything to ask, Nina?
All it was because earlier I wasn't sure if I explained it clearly, but I'm worried about what's going on in these, especially the EU countries. And my predicament is I would rather not, I'd rather go somewhere else if it's safer. But then I think, well, how do we fight it if we're not in the countries? That's what I meant earlier.
Yeah, you're programmed to think it's a country, but it's more of a farm, and they don't have your well-being at heart.
Yeah, I know.
And they're attacking Australia and UK harder because they're islands. It's war strategy. You can't leave as easy. Like, we can walk into the woods. We can sneak over the border to the U.S. I could walk to Mexico if I had to. I could hitchhike. I could. But because they're islands, they're hitting you harder, and they've already taken the guns away. Like, you don't have access to a lot of assault weapons to protect yourself. And they did that purposely for the past 50 or 60 years in Australia and in the UK. They've been coming at you guys to get you to this point for very, very long time, and they're just going to keep on pushing it. They're not going to stop. There is no stoppage to their poisoning and indoctrination-based control grid. Like, you can go back to leaded paint or leaded gas or thalidomide or DDT or leaded cans when they used to cross the Atlantic over here to North America. They were poisoning people. They've been poisoning people since history's been written. Mercury teeth fillings in the mouth. I mean, come on. Why do you think they're putting mercury as teeth fillings in your mouth when mercury is the number one most toxic non-radioactive substance on the planet? And they're putting it as a tooth filling?
So
they've been doing this a lot longer than you think.
What do you think the solution is then? What should people be doing to try and... is there any hope, basically?
there's hope if you reprogram and then teach other people how to reprogram. And then your vibration, don't forget the subconscious mind learns through repetition. So if you're walking down the road healthy, at 51 and you got all your black hair still in your beard and your hair, and your weight hasn't changed in 30 years in your hometown, that repetition can change other people's behavior. Mm. So you can lead by example, and that's the reason why you want to. There is hope, but you have to give hope to yourself, and then you have to give repetitive hope to others and tell them how to start a garden, what to eat, what to eat at lunch, instead of working a job you don't like and then plowing yourself with a pizza and calling it a reward on a Friday night. Well, maybe you get a massage and start your own business. When did a reward or a treat become a poison? And how inverted is that belief system? And how, if you live that belief system out, that a pizza and a takeaway french fry is a treat or reward on a Friday night for working a job for 5 days that you don't like, where does that get you over 30 years?
It's crazy, isn't it, when you put it like that? It's absolutely crazy. But we are enslaved.
If you get healthy, you can lead by example, and that's the hope. If you stay, but lead by example. Just don't be one of those people that just sits there and sedates and then pulls up a lawn chair to watch the mushroom cloud go up over London and say, that was a great show.
Which a lot of people are doing, let's be fair. I mean, not even necessarily with their health, but with what's going on in the world at the moment. I think they think if they sit back and do nothing, then, it'll all turn out fine.
Oh, it's not going to turn out. It's not going to turn out fine whatsoever. It's just going to be more and more poisoning, and that's why they're attacking right now. Is because a lot of people were backing out of the poisoning. These people who rule us were seeing that, and they're like, we got to create some kind of fake crisis to force the poison onto them. That's what's going on. We're getting like pushed back into the meat grinder.
Yeah.
Where's the best place to follow you, Jason?
You could follow me on Facebook, Jason Christoff. There's the same picture of me in the chair. And when I'm not in Facebook jail, I post a lot of self-sabotage stuff there. You can follow me on MeWe and Parler and Gab. Those are, and Instagram.
Yeah.
Or you can go to my website, jchristoff.com. Christoff is Christ with an OFF on the end. And J, just the letter J, jchristoff.com. I do have a podcast. If you want to get on my email list, my private email list, just email me at jason@freedomfromselfsabotage.com, because I do these really pretty informative podcasts that are banned on every social media platform on the planet, and I'll just send you them personally. So send me your email address, and I give lots of. All my podcasts have cited sources, and I'll give you a lot of empowering information. Sounds how to eat, how to exercise. Maybe come see me in Mexico if I move there. Who's helping me move there?
Well, I hope you do get that. I'm sure you'll carry on your good work.
I want to go Mexico as well.
Well, we better round up there, Jason, but can I say, again, I know I've kept saying, it's a real privilege tonight. It's so exciting, and I've been really nervous about it all day. When Nina arrived, I was like, oh my God, I'm so nervous.
I'm just my persona on social media probably portrays me as a bit of a lunatic, but you can hear in my voice I'm not really like that.
No, not at all. It's been a real pleasure. I think it's just because when I started out on Facebook, when it first came about, you were literally one of the first guys that I started following that was a bit of an activist and started spreading your word and your truth. And I shared a lot of your stuff. And, I've been doing a radio show now coming on for, about 9 months. And it's like, you popped up the other day. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to ask him. He can only say no. So it has been a real privilege, and I hope you'll come back another point and we can chat again.
Oh, my pleasure, Shelley. Thanks for having me on, Nina. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, lovely to
You're welcome.
Jason.
Well, good luck and take care, and we'll stay in touch, Jason.
Okay, you have a great evening, ladies.
Yes, you too, Andy. Thanks, Jason. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Wow, that was awesome, everyone. I've got lots of.
That.
We've been taking lots of notes, haven't we, Nina? Lots more things.
Every time
to
you
look at.
grabbed a pen, I was grabbing my pen. As well.
So that was good. That's a wrap, eh? That's good.
Yeah.
So I'll just, for those still listening, obviously we'll be back the same time next week, and we have got Rebecca Sawyer, international medium, next week, and there is the Stand in the Park in Penzance at 1:00 in Morab Gardens for anybody that wants to go along to that. And there is a coach that is organised for the 24th of April for London. Please do get in touch with me. I'm allowed to put on a coach. It's not organising the whole London rally, just for those people that are being paid to listen. So thanks for listening. Me and Nina will sing you out. I think just one chorus at the end. We are the 99%.
Yeah. Okay.
We are the 99%. Singing we are the 99%. Singing we are the 90. Together we are mighty. We are the 99%. See you next week, guys.